Tonight, we journey to a past rarely illuminated in the pages of history, to explore the lives of the extraordinary women who governed the Wild West from the shadows. We are bound for the American frontier of the 1870s, a time and place so stark that by journey's end, you will feel a profound gratitude for the simple comfort of the mattress beneath you. Should you find these journeys into the past to be a welcome respite, consider sharing them with others who might also appreciate these forgotten histories. Your support allows these stories to continue being told. By some twist of fate, you have awakened in a cramped chamber situated directly above a saloon in the untamed West. The first sensation to assault you is the aroma. It is not merely the scent of unwashed bodies, though that is certainly present. Rather, it is a complex tapestry of odors. Wood smoke emanating from the pot-bellied stove in the corner, cloying cheap perfume failing to mask the room's other fragrances, and the indelible scent of last night's whiskey and tobacco, which seems to have soaked permanently into the rough-hewn floorboards. Your nose wrinkles as another layer asserts itself, the distinct smell of horse manure from the street below, drifting lazily through the thin cotton curtains that offer scant privacy at the single window. Following the scents are the sounds. A piano is being tuned somewhere downstairs, its notes repeating and shifting in a halting melody. The clatter of a passing wagon on the dusty street echoes as its wheels find purchase on the uneven earth. Voices call out to one another, a cacophony of English, Spanish, and a dialect that sounds Germanic. Through it all, a woman's laugh, sharp, practiced, and piercing, cuts through the morning din. You are reclined upon a narrow iron bed frame, furnished with a lumpy horsehair mattress that seems to poke you in all the most inconvenient places. The scratchy wool blanket that covers you, once a fancy, faded red, is now worn thin in patches. There are no sheets. Such luxuries are reserved for high-class establishments, and this is certainly not one of them. Beside the bed, a chipped ceramic wash basin holds water that has already cooled to a lukewarm temperature, with a sliver of harsh lye soap resting beside it. The room itself is minuscule, offering just enough space for the bed, a wobbly three-legged table bearing a coal oil lamp, and a battered trunk containing the entirety of its occupants' worldly possessions. The walls are so thin that you can distinctly hear the snores of someone in the adjacent room. Hanging on a nail by the door is a faded calico dress with a pair of worn leather boots resting on the floor beneath it. Welcome to the year 1878. This is the daily existence of a soiled dove in a western mining town. The fortunate news is that you are not one of the working girls. The unfortunate news is that you are the madam who presides over this establishment. In the American West of the 1870s and 1880s, the role of a madam was virtually the only path a woman could take to achieve independent wealth. Consider the circumstances. Women were denied the right to vote. most respectable professions were closed to them, and they could not secure business loans from banks. Your head throbs faintly, a lingering consequence of the 2 glasses of whiskey you permitted yourself last night, a necessary part of business when drinking with customers, but a poor choice for the following morning. As you rise, your bare feet touch the rough wooden planks, which have not known a proper scrubbing in years. Gaps between some of the boards are wide enough to offer glimpses of the saloon below. Splinters are a constant menace. You reach for a worn cotton wrapper to throw over your chemise before making your way to the wash basin. The water is now cold, but you splash some on your face regardless. There is no mirror here. They are expensive and easily broken in a place frequented by drunken cowboys and miners. In any case, you know your own face by touch, the lines at the corners of your eyes, the slight firmness of your jaw. You are 35 years old now. You have been running this place for nearly 7 years. It is not the most opulent brothel in town, but neither is it the worst. You have 6 girls in your employ, 3 in rooms along this narrow hallway, and 3 more in the small building out back. Most of the madams in town began their careers as working girls themselves. Some still entertain special clients, the wealthy, the powerful, those who might prove useful. But not you. You discerned early on that the substantial money was not in selling your own companionship, but in taking a percentage from the companionship of others. Downstairs, you hear the bartender beginning his day, the clinking of glasses signaling his preparations. It is time to start moving. You have supplies to order, a sheriff who requires his customary payment, and a new girl arriving on the afternoon stage who will need to be initiated into the ways of the house. You pull on a dark blue skirt and a white shirtwaist, practical attire for the business side of your day. Later, you will change into something more formidable silk, if you have it, or velvet if you do not. A crucial part of being a successful madam is looking the part. The customers expect it, and in this business, appearances are paramount. The renowned madams, women like Maddie Silks in Denver or Jenny Rogers, understood precisely how to leverage their appearance to project an aura of success. If you appear successful, you attract a more discerning clientele and can command higher prices. It is elementary business acumen, but with a distinctly feminine application. These women wore the most exquisite dresses, were adorned with jewels, and made certain everyone in town was aware of their prosperity. Speaking of Maddie Silks, there is a tale that when she first came to Denver in the 1870s, she arrived with 4 girls she had recruited in Kansas City. They did not, however, travel directly. Maddie, ever the strategist, had what she termed a portable boarding house set up in her coach. The girls conducted business at every mining camp they passed along the route. By the time they reached Denver, they had already earned enough to establish their operation in grand style. That was the kind of ingenuity that distinguished the triumphant madams from the rest. They perceived opportunities where others saw only hardship. You tighten the laces of your boots, wincing as they press against a blister from the previous day. Comfortable footwear is not a viable option in your profession. The dainty boots, with their pointed toes and 2-inch heels, are torturous on your feet, but they are an integral part of the uniform. At least you are not yet wearing the corset. That instrument of torment can wait until evening. As you complete your dressing, your mind cycles through the accounts. Last night was profitable. Payday at the mines translates to free spending customers. You keep the books yourself, trusting no one else with the figures. In your bottom drawer, concealed beneath a false panel, rests a leather-bound ledger where every transaction is meticulously recorded. Another book, the one you would present if some meddlesome lawman came inquiring, sits in plain view with significantly smaller numbers. Most successful madams were extraordinarily adept with money. They had to be. Jenny Rogers, the undisputed queen of Denver's Row, invested her brothel earnings into the city's irrigation and reservoir infrastructure, turning a handsome profit. The system functioned as follows. A girl might charge $5 for her company. That same $5 would cover her room and board at your establishment. Any earnings beyond that fundamental amount could be used for clothing, medicine, or saved for a future life. However, not all madams were so generous. If a girl failed to meet her minimum, she could find herself dismissed and on the street. Business, after all, was business. You were not that severe. You understood that everyone has unproductive nights or periods of ill health. But you did take 50% of everything your girls earned, providing room, board, a degree of protection, and an established clientele in exchange. Beyond the fundamental exchange of services, there was alcohol, a great deal of it, watered down and marked up by as much as 60%. That was where the real fortune was made. Encourage the customers to drink. Persuade them to buy drinks for the girls, which were mostly colored water, and the profits would accumulate. Some saloon girls earned commissions on the drinks they sold, but that money typically went straight back to the madam to cover the cost of fancy attire or other necessities. You descend the narrow, creaking staircase, each step announcing your arrival. The saloon is quiet at this early hour, occupied only by the bartender, who is wiping down the already immaculate bar top with a rag that has seen better days. He gives you a respectful nod, fully aware of who signs his pay vouchers. Most madams operated under assumed names. It was a matter of safety. Morning, Thomas. Any trouble after I retired? He shakes his head. Quiet as a church mouse, Catherine. Except for Mr. Wilson losing another week's pay at poker. You make a mental note to discreetly inform Mr. Wilson's wife that she might want to keep a closer eye on her husband's activities. Not that you would ever explicitly say anything. Discretion is another cornerstone of your business, but it is wise to keep track of which customers might become problematic. The saloon itself is rather typical for a mining town. A long bar runs along one wall, scarred from years of bottles, glasses, and the occasional knife. A dozen small tables are surrounded by mismatched chairs. A small, raised platform at the far end serves as a stage for the piano player, and on occasion, a singer, if you can find one who will not rob you blind. The walls are adorned with faded prints of racehorses and hunting scenes torn from Eastern magazines, plus a large, cracked mirror behind the bar that creates the illusion of a much larger room. It is not the house of mirrors in Denver, with its ceiling-to-floor looking glasses and velvet furniture, but it serves its purpose. Men do not come here for the decor. A sharp knock at the back door interrupts your reverie. It is too early for customers. It must be the supply wagon with the weekly delivery of whiskey and beer. "I'll get it," you say to Thomas, heading toward the storeroom. It is not the supply wagon. Instead, you find yourself facing Sheriff Mills, his expression grim beneath his bushy mustache. Your heart plummets. This cannot be good news. "Morning, Catherine," he says, removing his hat. At least he is being polite. "Sheriff," you nod. "Here for your weekly stipend a bit early, aren't you?" "Not about that. There's been some trouble over at Lily's place. She's dead. Stabbed. One of her girls, too." A chill permeates your body despite the growing warmth of the morning. This business has always been dangerous, but murders are not a common occurrence, even in a rough town like this. "Any idea who did it?" The sheriff shakes his head. "Working on it. Just thought you should know. Might want to be extra careful for a while." You nod, your mind already racing through the implications. You will need to hire an extra man for security. Warn the girls to be especially watchful. Perhaps raise prices temporarily to cover the additional expense. "Thanks for letting me know," you say, reaching into your pocket and pulling out a silver dollar. It is not a bribe, exactly, more of a professional courtesy. As he leaves, you stand for a moment in the doorway, the news settling heavily upon you. Lily is dead. You did not know her well. Competitors maintain a certain distance, but she had been a presence in this town for years, a fixture just like you. It is a stark reminder of the precarious position you occupy. For all the money you have accumulated, for all your business acumen and careful planning, you are still just a madam in a town that tolerates your existence, but would shed no tears at your passing. This was the reality that women like Maddie Silks, Jenny Rogers, and countless others confronted every day. They constructed empires out of desire and loneliness, amassing fortunes where other women could not even secure employment, but they perpetually existed on the precipice of disaster. One angry customer, one jealous competitor, one moral crusade by the townspeople, and everything they had painstakingly built could vanish overnight. Yet they persisted. They expanded their businesses, paid off local politicians, and sought to add legitimacy to their trade in any way they could. Maddie Silks managed to acquire a liquor license in 1885, something nearly unheard of for a woman-owned enterprise at the time. You straighten your shoulders and head back into the saloon. There is no time for dwelling on what might happen. There is business to attend to. The economics of operating a brothel in the Wild West were straightforward, but demanded meticulous management. Alcohol sales provided a steady stream of income. Special services brought in larger sums, but were more irregular. Rooms could be rented by the hour or for the entire night, depending on the customer's needs and the size of his wallet. everything had its price, clearly established and non-negotiable. Pearl de Vere, another famous madam, was known for hosting elaborate parties and charging astronomical sums for her company. She died of a morphine overdose in 1897 following one such celebration. Jenny Rogers ran her house of mirrors into the early 1900s, but the changing social climate eventually forced her out of business. The back door swings open, revealing a shaft of bright morning sunlight. One of your girls, Sadie, enters carrying a basket of fresh bread from the bakery down the street. The aroma hits you immediately: yeast and flour and warmth, momentarily overpowering the lingering odors of stale beer and tobacco. Sadie places the basket on the bar and begins to unpack the loaves. Mrs. Peterson at the bakery says her husband's thinking of running for mayor, and the Marshall boys got into another fight at the Silver Dollar last night. Oh, and the stage from the east is running late, broke a wheel about 10 miles out. The new girl will be arriving late then. More time to prepare. Sadie continues to chatter as she arranges the bread, sharing all the gossip she has gleaned on her morning errand. This is another valuable service your girls provide: information. In a town where everyone harbors secrets, knowing who is doing what with whom is a currency all its own. You let her talk while your mind drifts to the practicalities of the day ahead. There is the new girl to settle in, a delivery of proper French champagne supposedly arriving for your wealthier clientele, and the monthly doctor's visit to arrange. You insist on regular health checks for all your employees, a precaution not every madam bothers with. The life of a Wild West madam was a blend of businesswoman, mother figure, and warden. You managed personalities and profits with equal care. You settled disputes, nursed the sick, protected your girls from abusive customers, and still had to maintain the facade of Gentile hospitality that kept the money flowing. And despite all that work and all that risk, society would never acknowledge your contributions or your success. The same townsfolk who visited your establishment under the cover of darkness would cross the street to avoid you in daylight. The businessmen who invested your money and profited from your success would never introduce you to their wives. You existed in a liminal space, essential to the functioning of the community, but officially invisible. Yet the madams of the West were often among the wealthiest and most influential women of their time. They owned property when most women could not. They ran businesses when most women were limited to domestic work. They built fortunes when most women were financially dependent on men. As the morning progresses, the saloon slowly begins to stir. The piano player arrives, his clothes rumpled from sleeping wherever he found a space last night. More of your girls appear, some bright-eyed and ready for the day, others still battling the effects of sleep or last night's libations. The warmth of the day starts to seep through the thin walls. Your body softens slightly, sinking deeper into the wooden seat. There is still so much to do, but for a moment, you allow yourself to listen to someone sweeping upstairs, the soft whisper of a broom against wooden floors. The smell of brewing coffee now joins the scent of fresh bread. Your muscles release a little more tension as you adjust your position. Motes of dust dance in the beam of sunlight coming through the window. You feel yourself becoming more comfortable with each breath. In this rare moment of stillness, you observe the saloon slowly awakening as the girls move through their morning routines. A sigh escapes your lips as the warm spring air drifts through the open doorway where the sheriff had been standing only moments before. A loud crash from upstairs shatters the morning calm, followed by a muffled curse. "I'll deal with it," you say to Thomas, who is already looking toward the ceiling with concern. The stairs creak under your boots as you climb back to the second floor. The noise came from Rose's room. She is one of your newer girls, barely 20, with a temper that ignites hot and fast. "Everything all right in there?" you call through the thin door. "Fine," comes the sharp reply, followed by the sound of something else breaking. You do not bother knocking, as the madam, every room in this establishment is yours to enter as needed. The door swings open to reveal Rose standing amid the shards of what used to be a porcelain wash basin. Her face is flushed, her eyes bright with a mixture of anger and tears. "Want to tell me what that was about?" you ask, careful to keep your voice neutral. You have learned that in this business, judgment only exacerbates situations. "Johnny Wilson promised to take me away from here," she says, her voice cracking. "Said he was saving up to buy us a little place outside of town. Then I saw him this morning, heading into the stage office to buy a ticket. One ticket for himself. It is a depressingly common story. A man fills a girl's head with dreams of respectability and escape, then disappears. Sometimes they just leave town. Other times they leave with the girl's savings. He wasn't worth that basin, Rose," you say gently, "and he's certainly not worth your tears." Sympathy and a dose of pragmatism are sometimes all you can offer. Rose nods, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand. Back downstairs, you find more of your girls have emerged. Lucy, the oldest at 29, is helping Thomas slice bread. Mary and Bate, sisters who came west after their parents died in a factory fire back east, are sweeping the floor and arranging chairs. Everyone has a job to do before the customers arrive. This was how the better brothels operated, like well-managed households. The women were not just there for the customers' pleasure. They maintained the establishment, prepared food, and kept the place clean and orderly. Some madams, like Dora Dufran in Deadwood, ran multiple businesses, including a dance hall and a wine room, which required a significant amount of daily labor from her employees. Her establishment became known as one of the finest brothels in the West, attracting wealthy businessmen, politicians, and visitors who desired more than a quick transaction. Your place is not quite that fancy, but you have standards. Your girls do not work if they are sick or injured. They receive regular medical examinations. You do not permit excessive drinking while they are on duty, and you keep a close watch on customers who might become violent. Not every madam was so careful, but you learned early that healthy, content employees are good for business. A knock at the front door interrupts your thoughts. It is still too early for regular customers. "I'll get it," Lucy says, wiping her hands on her apron before crossing to the door. She returns a moment later with a young woman who looks as though she has not slept in days. Her dress, once of good quality, is travel-stained and crumpled. She clutches a small carpet bag with white-knuckled hands. "Says she's looking for work," Lucy explains, giving the newcomer a quick, appraising glance. "I'm Catherine," you say, extending your hand. "I run this establishment." "Emily," the young woman replies, her voice barely a whisper. Her handshake is limp, uncertain. "Emily Mitchell." "Well, Emily Mitchell, you look like you could use a hot meal and a wash before we discuss anything else. Lucy, show her to the kitchen and find her something to eat." The reasons women came to this life were varied. They came through necessity, desperation, or a lack of alternatives. Some were widows with no means of support. Some had been abandoned by husbands or lovers. Some were fleeing abusive homes. Some were introduced to the trade by mothers or sisters already in it. In the harsh reality of the American frontier, women had few options for independence. They could marry, teach school if they were educated enough, work as maids or laundresses for pitiful wages, or enter the sporting life. For a woman alone in the world, especially one without family or connections, the choice often did not feel like a choice at all. An hour later, Emily is sitting across from you at a small table, a plate of bread and cheese, now empty, beside her. She has washed her face and hands and appears to have not seen a proper meal in days. Some color has returned to her pale cheeks. "So," you say, pouring her a cup of coffee from the pot Thomas has brought over, "tell me what brings you here." Her story spills out in fits and starts. She was a governess for a wealthy family in San Francisco. The master of the house made advances, which she rebuffed. His wife, believing her husband's denials, dismissed Emily without a reference. Without a reference, you nod. It is a common tale. A woman's reputation was everything, and once lost, it was nearly impossible to reclaim. With no family to turn to and her savings depleted by the long journey, she heard that mining towns offered opportunities. She did not specify what kind of opportunities, but her presence here makes it clear what she discovered. She is educated, well-spoken, and her hands, though calloused from travel, show no signs of hard labor. "I'll do whatever is required," she says, her voice steady now, though her eyes remain fixed on her coffee cup. You consider her for a long moment. Taking on an inexperienced girl means time spent training, potential awkwardness with customers, and possible drama when the reality of the work sets in. But something about her steady gaze, despite her desperate circumstances, impresses you. "All right," you say. "We'll give you a try. You'll start by serving drinks, helping with the cleaning. We'll see how you manage." Her relief is palpable. "Thank you. I won't disappoint you." "See that you don't," you reply, rising from the table. "Lucy will show you where you'll sleep." As Lucy leads Emily upstairs, Thomas approaches with a folded piece of paper. "A message came while you were talking," he says, handing it to you. The note is brief, written in the flowing script of Madame Rosalie, who runs the most expensive brothel in town. She is summoning the town's madams to a meeting tonight at her place. Unusual, But given what happened to Lily, not unexpected. The madams of a town, while competitors, often maintained a wary alliance. They set prices together to prevent undercutting, warned each other about violent customers, and sometimes shared the cost of bribing officials or hiring protection. Like any business leaders, they recognized that some forms of cooperation benefited everyone. The famous Madams of Denver, Mattie Silks, Jenny Rogers, and others were known to collaborate when necessary, even as they competed fiercely for customers and prestige. When the city council tried to shame them by requiring prostitutes to wear yellow ribbons, they turned the ordinance on its head by dressing entirely in yellow from head to toe, creating a spectacle that eventually forced the council to rescind the order. You fold the note and tuck it into your pocket. The meeting will mean leaving the saloon during evening hours, not ideal, but necessary. You will have Thomas watch things while you are gone. The day progresses with the usual tasks. You review supplies with Thomas, making a note of what needs ordering. You settle a minor dispute between Mary and Bate over a borrowed hairpin that escalated into accusations about a stolen customer. You review the books again, considering whether it is time to raise prices. The new mining operation that opened north of town has brought in workers with money to spend. By late afternoon, the saloon is ready for business. The floors have been swept, the spittoons emptied and cleaned, the bar stocked. Fresh sawdust has been scattered across the floor to absorb spills and make cleanup easier tomorrow. The piano has been tuned as best as your regular player can manage with his limited skills. The girls are dressing for the evening, transforming from the practical women who cleaned and cooked all day into the fantasy figures who will entertain tonight. Corsets are tightened to create exaggerated hourglass figures, and hair is arranged in elaborate curls and waves. Your own transformation is more subtle, but just as deliberate. The practical business clothes of the day are replaced by a gown of deep burgundy satin, still elegant despite being several years out of fashion. A gold locket hangs at your throat, a gift from a customer years ago who had more money than sense. Your hair, now showing threads of gray, is pinned up in a style that suggests sophistication without trying too hard for youth. The transformation is not just physical. As you dress, you feel yourself becoming the persona your customers expect. Worldly, slightly detached, with a scene-tall air that somehow remains approachable. Being a madam is a performance as much as it is a business position. By the time you return downstairs, the first customers are already arriving. They are miners, mostly, their faces still bearing the grime of the day's work, despite their attempts to wash up. They order whiskey at the bar, their eyes roving over the girls who have positioned themselves strategically around the room. You make your rounds, greeting regulars by name and introducing yourself to newcomers. Your manner is warm but reserved, friendly but not familiar. You laugh at their jokes but maintain a certain distance. This careful balance is part of your role, accessible enough to make them comfortable spending money, yet authoritative enough to maintain order. At 9 o'clock, You catch Lucy's attention and signal that you are leaving for your meeting. She nods, understanding that she is in charge until you return. Lucy has been with you the longest and knows the business almost as well as you do. If you ever decided to retire, she would be the one you would consider selling to. The night air is cool as you step outside, a welcome relief from the heat and smoke of the saloon. The streets are quieter now, with most respectable businesses closed for the evening. A few men loiter outside the other saloons in town, and a dog barks somewhere in the distance. Madame Rosalie's establishment sits at the north end of town, a large 2-story house painted white with green shutters, designed to look like a respectable residence. Only the red lantern hanging discreetly by the door indicates its true purpose. You are admitted by a doorman dressed like a butler, who leads you to a parlor at the back of the house. The room is elegantly furnished with velvet couches, oriental rugs, and oil paintings in gilt frames. Crystal decanters of liquor sit on a sideboard, along with delicate glasses. 3 other women are already present. Madame Rosalie herself, a French woman, or at least she claims to be. No one has ever verified this. In her 40s, and dressed in midnight blue silk Harriet Brown, who runs a small place catering exclusively to the town's Chinese population. And Sarah Jenkins, whose establishment sits on the opposite end of town from yours, serving mainly cowboys and cattlemen passing through. Greetings are exchanged with formal politeness. Drinks are poured. Only when everyone is settled does Madame Rosalie address the reason for the gathering. "I assume you've all heard about Lily," she says, her accent thickening, as it always does when she is concerned. Everyone nods. We need to decide how to respond. Another man hired for security at each of our establishments, effective immediately. "It will be expensive," Sarah Jenkins remarks, ever mindful of costs. "Less expensive than another murder," you counter. "We could also close earlier for a while and raise our prices to cover the extra expense," Harriet suggests practically. The discussion continues in this vein for some time. Practical considerations, business decisions. No one mentions the fear that underlies the conversation, that what happened to Lily could happen to any of them. Despite the wealth they accumulated, despite the power they wielded in their own domains, madams existed in a precarious position. They operated outside the protection of the law, while simultaneously being subject to its penalties. They were essential to their communities, yet scorned by polite society. They were entrepreneurs in an era when women were not supposed to have business acumen. Many, like Jenny Rogers and Maddie Silks, tried to gain respectability through charitable works, donating to churches, orphanages, and hospitals, and buying clothes and school supplies for poor children. The meeting concludes with agreements about new security measures and a pact to share information about any suspicious customers. As you prepare to leave, Madame Rosalie draws you aside. "Lily was asking questions before she died," she says in a low voice. "About money, about certain businessmen in town. And I think it would be wise for all of us to be careful about what we know and who knows we know it." The warning sits heavily as you make your way back through the quiet streets to your own establishment. Madams often accumulated secrets as valuable as currency. Jenny Rogers once blackmailed a local politician by threatening to expose him as a frequent customer, earning herself $17,000 in the process, a fortune at the time. But such knowledge could be as dangerous as it was profitable. The saloon is still busy when you return, though the crowd has thinned somewhat. Thomas catches your eye from behind the bar, a slight shake of his head indicating that nothing requiring your attention has occurred in your absence. You make another round of the room, checking on your girls and assessing the mood of the customers. Everything seems to be running smoothly. Emily is serving drinks, her nervousness from earlier replaced by a careful attentiveness. She will do well, you think. As the hours wear on and the crowd dwindles further, the saloon grows quiet. Most customers have gone upstairs with your girls. Others have drifted home or to their camp beds at the mine. A few diehards remain at the bar, nursing their drinks and sharing increasingly exaggerated stories. You find yourself at your small desk again, tallying the night's earnings while keeping one eye on the room. The meeting with the other madams has left you thoughtful, considering your own position and future. You sometimes entertain a fantasy of selling the saloon and moving away to a place where no one knows your past. A small house, perhaps, with a garden and books to read. The fantasy is pleasant enough that you allow yourself to linger on it, your pen pausing in its tabulation of figures. Your shoulders, tense from the day's concerns and the evening's warning, begin to relax slightly. You roll your head gently, feeling the small pops as your neck releases its tightness. From the piano comes a slow, soothing melody. Your player has switched from lively dance tunes to something more appropriate for the waning hours. The rhythm of it matches your breathing, which has slowed without your noticing. Your body finds a comfortable backdrop as you continue your work. The ledger's columns of neat figures provide their own kind of satisfaction, order imposed on the chaos of life. Your hand moves smoothly across the page, the scratch of pen on paper joining the ambient noise of the room. You stifle a yawn, stretching your arms above your head before settling back into a more comfortable position. The burgundy satin of your dress rustles softly with the movement. You feel your muscles releasing their tension, your breathing deepening naturally as you continue reviewing the night's transactions. That's it. Nice and easy. The pianist has transitioned to a gentle, repetitive tune, something that reminds you of rainfall on a tin roof. Morning comes too soon, with sunlight slanting through the gaps in your curtains to land directly across your eyes. You groan, rolling away from the brightness. Your head pounds slightly, not from drink, you are too careful for that, but from the late hour you finally retired. From your room, you can hear the sounds of your establishment and the town already coming to life. You can hear the blacksmith's hammer ringing from down the street, a wagon rattling by with wheels clattering against the uneven ground, and someone shouting about fresh milk for sale. You dress quickly in a simple navy skirt and white blouse. There is no need for the fancy clothes until evening. Your hair is twisted into a simple knot at the nape of your neck, with a splash of rose water behind your ears, not the heavy perfume of night, but something lighter, cleaner. Downstairs, you find Thomas already at work, sweeping up last night's sawdust and debris. Lucy is at the stove in the small kitchen behind the bar, stirring a pot of what smells like oatmeal. "Morning," she says, not looking up from her task. "Coffee's ready." You pour yourself a cup, savoring the bitter warmth. Coffee is one luxury you never skimp on. Even in the worst financial times, you make sure to buy good beans. It is a small pleasure in a life that offers few refined enjoyments. "How's our new girl?" you ask, leaning against the doorframe. Lucy shrugs. "Still sleeping. She worked hard last night. Quick learner. Good. When she wakes up, send her to me. I want to go over the house rules with her." Every brothel had its rules, usually established and strictly enforced by the madam. No stealing from customers or other girls. No fighting on the premises. The famous Jenny Rogers had particularly strict rules for her house of mirrors. Her girls were not allowed to drink excessively, had to maintain a certain standard of dress and behavior at all times, and could not argue with customers, no matter how difficult. Breaking these rules meant immediate dismissal, often without the wages owed. Such strictness might seem harsh, but it was necessary. A brothel was judged by the behavior of its women. A place where the girls were drunk, slovenly, or argumentative would not attract the high-paying customers that made the business profitable. You are halfway through your coffee when there is a sharp knock at the front door. Thomas looks to you questioningly. "I'll get it," you say, setting down your cup. When you open the door, you find a young man in a crisp deputy's uniform. His badge, still shiny enough to suggest it, is relatively new. "Ma'am," he says, touching the brim of his hat. "Sheriff Mills sent me about the trouble at Lily's." You step aside, gesturing for him to enter. "Any news?" "They caught the fella who did it," the deputy says, looking uncomfortable in the saloon, despite its emptiness. Drummer, passing through town, had blood on his clothes and Lily's brooch in his pocket. "Did he say why?" The deputy shifts his weight. "Said she laughed at him when he couldn't perform." You nod, unsurprised. Male pride is a dangerous thing, especially when wounded. You have seen violence erupt over less in your years running this establishment. "Sheriff wanted all you ladies to know it's handled," the deputy continues. "No need for extra worry." "Thank the sheriff for the information," you reply formally. "Will there be a trial?" The young man looks even more uncomfortable. "No, ma'am. He tried to escape custody this morning. Sheriff had to shoot." Which means the sheriff, or one of his men, took care of the problem permanently, saving the town the expense and trouble of a trial for the murder of a prostitute. You are not shocked. In frontier justice, some lives counted more than others. After the deputy leaves, you share the news with Lucy and Thomas. There is a momentary silence as you all absorb the implications. Later that morning, you find Emily awake and helping Lucy in the kitchen. She appears well rested, and some of the desperation has left her eyes, replaced by a cautious watchfulness. You gesture her to a table in the corner where you can have some privacy. She obeys instantly, folding her hands in her lap. The governess training shows in her posture, her back straight and shoulders square. "You did well last night," you begin, Thomas says you're quick and careful with the drinks. No spills, no mistakes in the orders. Thank you, she says, a faint blush coloring her cheeks at the praise. I'm grateful for the opportunity. Today, we'll need to discuss what comes next, you continue. Serving drinks is fine to start, but it won't earn you much. Most of our profit comes from other services. Emily's blush deepens, but she meets your gaze steadily, a sign that she has already considered the realities of her new life. You lay out the terms clearly, without euphemism. Prices for different services, the percentage she will keep, the percentage that goes to the house. You also explain the risks: disease, unwanted pregnancy, violent customers. Many girls enter the trade thinking it is temporary, just until they save enough to start over somewhere else. Some manage it, most do not. The stigma follows them, especially in small towns where everyone knows everyone's business. Emily is silent for a long moment, her eyes dropping to her hands. What are my alternatives? She finally asks. Would anyone hire me now that I've spent a night under your roof? Her voice is quiet, but not accusatory. You do not insult her with false reassurances. It is the predicament so many women faced on the frontier. Without money or family support, options narrowed quickly. The line between respectability and ruin was thin and easily crossed. I know what I'm choosing, Emily says, her voice firmer now. I've thought about it all night. I don't see another way forward from where I am. You nod, respecting her clear-eyed assessment of her situation. All right then. Lucy will help you get ready. You'll need different clothes for evening work. I'll advance you enough for a proper dress and shoes. It comes out of your first earnings, of course. Of course, she agrees. One more thing, you add, leaning forward. There's no shame in what you do here. You're providing a service, one that men seek out willingly. There's no shame in meeting a demand, no matter what the church ladies might say. It is the same advice Mattie Silks reportedly gave to her new girls. Pride was essential armor in this business. Without it, the judgment and scorn of society could crush a woman's spirit entirely. Emily nods, a small smile touching her lips. Yes, ma'am. You watch her walk away, wondering how she will fare. Some women adapt to the life, finding a measure of independence and camaraderie that was denied to them in more respectable spheres. Others never reconcile themselves to it, turning to drink or drugs to numb their feelings until they are no longer suitable for the better establishments. They end up in the cribs, tiny cubicles, where the cheapest prostitutes plied their trade, or dead from disease, overdose, or violence. You hope Emily will be one of the survivors, like Mattie Silks or Jenny Rogers, who parlayed their beauty and business sense into financial security. But you are realistic enough to know not everyone has the combination of qualities needed to thrive in this harsh world. The day continues with its usual tasks and small dramas. Rose is still sulking over Johnny Wilson's betrayal, but has stopped breaking things, at least. Mary and Bate have reconciled over the hairpin dispute and are now united in criticizing another girl's choice of evening gown. Thomas reports that you are running low on whiskey and will need to place an order with the supplier. In the late afternoon, Dr. Harrison arrives for his monthly visit. He is a man in his 50s, with kind eyes and a permanently stern expression that softens only slightly when addressing you directly. "Catherine," he greets you with a nod. "The usual examinations, I presume?" "Yes, plus we have a new girl who should be checked as well," you reply, leading him to the small back room that serves as your office, and on days like this, an examination room. Not all doctors were willing to treat prostitutes, and those who did often charged exorbitant rates. But Harrison is a practical man. He understands that disease does not respect moral boundaries, that infections spread from brothels to respectable homes via the husbands and sons who frequent establishments like yours. His monthly visits are as much about protecting the wider community as they are about caring for your girls. The examinations are brief but thorough. Each girl is checked for signs of venereal disease, which would render her unable to work until treated and cleared. Any other health concerns are addressed as well. Persistent coughs that might indicate tuberculosis, unusual bleeding, signs of pregnancy. When it is Emily's turn, you see her hesitation as she approaches the door to your office. This is often the moment when new girls reconsider their decision, when the clinical reality of the profession hits home. "It's necessary," you tell her quietly, "for your protection and ours." She nods, takes a deep breath, and enters the room. An hour later, Dr. Harrison emerges, his bag packed. "Everyone is healthy for now," he reports, the new girl included. You pay him for his services, a discreet transaction that acknowledges both the risk to his reputation and the value of his work, and see him out through the back door. It would not do for his regular patients to know he visits your establishment, even in a professional capacity. As afternoon stretches toward evening, the pace of activity in the saloon increases. Girls who have been mending clothes or writing letters to family, always with fictitious details about their employment, begin preparing for the night ahead. Thomas stocks the bar and makes sure the spittoons are empty and cleaned. The piano player arrives, slightly less rumpled than yesterday, and begins warming up with scales and simple tunes. You retreat to your room to change into your evening attire. A gown of deep green velvet tonight, slightly out of fashion, but still impressive with its tight bodice and flowing skirt. A different piece of jewelry adorns you, pearl earrings that were payment from a customer who ran short of cash one night. Your hair is arranged more elaborately, with combs holding the gray-streaked mass in a style that suggests elegance without trying too hard for youth. When you return downstairs, you find Emily transformed as well. Lucy has found her a dress of pale blue silk, slightly worn at the seams, but still pretty. Her hair has been curled and pinned up, with a few strategic tendrils left to frame her face. Rouge has been applied to her cheeks and lips, giving her a healthy glow that belies the hardships she has endured. Lucy has a good eye. The color complements Emily's fair coloring, and the style makes the most of her slender figure. Presentation matters in this business. As the evening begins and customers start to arrive, you watch Emily carefully. Her first night as more than just a drink server will set the tone for her time in your establishment. She seems nervous but determined, laughing at the right moments, accepting drinks bought for her, though you notice she is barely sipping them, smart girl, and allowing men to lead her in clumsy dances to the piano's music. Round 9, you see her speaking intently with a middle-aged man dressed in the clothes of a store clerk or minor businessman. He is not handsome, but he is clean and appears sober, a reasonable first customer. After a few minutes of conversation, they both glance towards you. You give a slight nod, and Emily leads him toward the stairs. This is how most transactions occurred in the better brothels. No crude bargaining or explicit discussion of services in the public areas. The girls knew the standard prices for different activities. The men either knew as well or were discreetly informed. The madam's approval was sought before proceeding upstairs. It maintained the illusion of gentility that separated parlor houses from the cribs. Emily returns downstairs about 45 minutes later, her expression neutral as she makes her way to the small desk where you keep the night's accounts. She hands you several bills, which you count before placing them in the cash box. "How was it?" you ask quietly. She nods, a small smile that does not quite reach her eyes lifting the corners of her mouth. "Fine." He was polite. "Good," you say. "That's all you can ask for sometimes. Go get yourself a drink. You've earned it." The night continues, a familiar rhythm of music, laughter, and commerce. The piano player is in rare form, his fingers dancing across the keys with unusual skill. Even Rose seems to have recovered from her heartbreak, laughing brightly with a group of cowboys fresh from a cattle drive. It is just after 10 when 3 men enter the saloon, their presence immediately changing the atmosphere of the room. They are trail-worn, dusty, and carry themselves with a swagger that borders on aggression. One has a long, jagged scar running down his cheek, and his eyes survey the room with the predatory gaze of someone looking for trouble rather than pleasure. You make your way toward them, your expression pleasant but watchful. New customers are always welcome, but not those who might disrupt your carefully maintained establishment. "Gentlemen," you greet them, positioning yourself so that Thomas behind the bar has a clear view of the situation. "Welcome to the Silver Star. What can we offer you this evening?" The scarred man's eyes assess you with a coldness that makes your spine stiffen. "Whiskey," he says shortly. "And girls. Been on the trail 2 weeks." "Of course," you reply smoothly. "Thomas will serve you drinks. The girls will join you when they're available." Most of your women are already occupied with other customers, a fact the newcomers clearly note with dissatisfaction. Only Emily and one other girl, Sarah, are currently unaccompanied. Sarah, more experienced and sensing potential profit, approaches their table, offering to join them. The scarred leader pulls her roughly onto his lap. She maintains her professional smile, but you can see the discomfort in her eyes. You move closer, ready to intervene if necessary. "What's your name, girl?" the man asks, his voice carrying across the now quieter room. "Sarah," she replies, trying to shift to a more comfortable position on his knee. "Sarah," he repeats, taking another swig of whiskey. "You look like you know how to be friendly." A disorderly brothel was bad for business. It scared away the better class of customer and attracted the kind you did not want. "Why don't I show you?" just how friendly I can be," Sarah suggests, standing and offering her hand to the man. It is a skilled attempt to move the situation upstairs, away from the public area where trouble could spread. For a moment, it seems to work. The man grins and starts to rise. Then his gaze falls on Emily, who is trying to make herself inconspicuous near the piano. "I want that one," he says, pointing. "The new one." "She is not available at the moment," you say firmly. "She's promised to another customer who's just stepped out temporarily. But Sarah here is one of our most popular girls. You'd be fortunate to have." "I said I want the new one," he interrupts, his voice low and dangerous. Thomas has moved closer, his hand beneath the bar where you know he keeps a shotgun. These were the moments that defined a madam's authority. How you handled difficult, potentially violent customers determined whether your establishment was seen as safe and orderly or chaotic and dangerous. Maddie Silks was known for personally ejecting troublemakers, sometimes at gunpoint. Jenny Rogers employed bouncers to handle problems before they escalated. You do not have bouncers, but you do have Thomas, and you have your own reputation for running a place where the girls are not mistreated, even by paying customers. "Sir," you say, your voice level but firm, "in my establishment, the girls choose their customers as much as the customers choose them. If you can't accept that, there are other places in town that might better suit your needs." The man stands slowly, his hand still resting on his gun. His companions rise as well, forming a loose circle around the table. You feel a knot tighten in your stomach. "I believe you might find the broken spoke at the edge of town more to your liking. The girls there might appreciate your directness. It is a calculated risk, directing them to your lowest-end competitor. Either they will leave peacefully to seek easier prey, or the situation will escalate into violence here and now." For a long moment, no one moves. You can hear the tick of the clock behind the bar, the creak of floorboards as someone shifts their weight, your own heartbeat pounding in your ears. Then the scarred man laughs, the sound as sharp and cold as breaking ice. "Fine," he says, tossing some coins on the table. "Keep your fancy whores. Boys, let's find somewhere more welcoming." As they file out, their threatening presence leaving with them, you feel the tension in your shoulders begin to ease. The room seems to collectively exhale. Thomas moves his hand away from whatever weapon he was gripping beneath the bar. "Thank you," Emily says quietly from behind you. Your hand, which had been resting on the small pistol you keep in your pocket, slowly relaxes. You nod, not trusting yourself to speak. Protecting your girls was not just a matter of good business. It was a point of personal honor. The better brothels operated as communities. The women looked out for each other, shared resources, celebrated each other's successes, and mourned each other's losses. Maddie Silks was known for nursing sick girls back to health rather than simply replacing them, as some madams did. Jenny Rogers loaned money to women trying to establish their own businesses outside the trade. Fanny Porter, a famous Texas madam, maintained relationships with her former employees long after they had left her establishment, often helping them find husbands or respectable positions. In a world that offered women few protections, they created their own safety nets. The rest of the night passes without incident. The scarred man and his companions do not return. Your regular customers gradually filter back in as word spreads that the trouble has moved on. The piano music resumes, drinks flow, and business continues. As you make your final rounds, checking that doors are locked and lamps extinguished, you find Emily sitting alone at the bar, a barely touched glass of whiskey in front of her. "Long day," you comment, sliding onto the stool beside her. She nods, staring into her drink. "Does it get any easier?" You consider her question, wanting to be honest without scaring her further. "Not every day," you say, "but often enough that you need to be prepared." She takes a small sip of whiskey, grimacing at the taste. "I thought I understood what I was getting into, but tonight I was so scared." "You have a right to be," you tell her, "but you also have a right to say no. Don't ever forget that." You think about this. Independence. More money than most women ever see. A kind of freedom that respectable women don't have. And you add with a small smile the friendships. The women here, they become like family. Emily nods slowly, absorbing this. "I think I'd like that. Family." After Emily goes upstairs, you remain at your desk, too keyed up from the evening's events to sleep despite your exhaustion. Your ledger lies open before you, but the figures blur as your mind replays the confrontation, imagining how differently it might have ended without the sheriff's timely arrival. The small oil lamp casts shadows across the room, creating pools of darkness between islands of warm light. Outside, the town has fallen silent. You lean back in your chair, feeling the tension in your shoulders begin to release slightly. Your breathing slows to match the quiet rhythm of the night. The fear that has been sitting like a stone in your stomach all evening begins to dissolve. In this moment of temporary peace, you allow your guard to drop just a little. Your eyes grow heavy as the adrenaline of the confrontation finally leaves your system. You shift in your chair, finding a more comfortable position as your muscles relax one by one. Your jaw unclenches, a tension you hadn't realized you were holding. The relief of knowing everyone is safe for tonight, at least, allows your mind to ease. You feel yourself settling deeper into your chair, your breathing naturally slowing as the events of the day recede into memory. A yawn escapes as your body tells you what your mind has been resisting, that it is time to rest, to gather strength for tomorrow's challenges. Just for a moment, you think, closing your eyes. Just a brief respite while everything is quiet and still. You adjust your position slightly, getting more comfortable as the night deepens around you. The distant sound of wind in the cottonwoods creates a soothing rhythm that seems to match your heartbeat as it gradually slows. You wake with a start, neck stiff from sleeping in the chair. Gray morning light filters through the windows. For a moment, you are disoriented. Then the events of last night come rushing back. The confrontation, the sheriff's intervention, the decision to keep everyone inside. Thomas is still at his post by the door, though his head has dropped to his chest in sleep. A rifle is balanced across his knees. The girls are scattered around the saloon in various states of slumber. some curled on makeshift pallets, others using folded arms as pillows on the tables. You stretch, wincing at the pain in your shoulders and back. Too old to be sleeping in chairs, you think ruefully. Then again, you are too old for a lot of things about this life, a fact that is becoming more apparent with each passing year. Rising quietly to avoid waking the others, you make your way to the small kitchen behind the bar. The stove is cold, but you find the remains of yesterday's coffee in a pot. It is bitter and strong, but the warmth and caffeine are welcome as you try to shake off the fog of interrupted sleep. The sound of your movements rouses Thomas. He sits up, instantly alert. Anything, you ask softly. Quiet as the grave all night. Did you sleep at all? Enough, you? Not that I know of. I fell asleep at my desk. You glance toward the still locked front door. Think our visitors have moved on. Thomas rises, moving to peer through a gap in the curtains covering the window. Streets quiet. Just the usual morning folk heading to work. You consider your options. You cannot keep the saloon closed indefinitely, and your girls cannot stay locked inside forever. At some point, you will have to return to normal operations and accept whatever risks come with it. Let's wait till the sheriff makes his rounds, you decide. If he gives the all clear, we'll open as usual tonight. Thomas nods, moving to stoke the stove for breakfast. The noise and activity begin to rouse the others. Girls stretch and yawn, complaining about sore backs and necks from their uncomfortable sleeping arrangements. The piano player, who stayed as well, begins to pick out a gentle morning tune, his fingers moving automatically across the keys, despite his still drowsy state. Lucy organizes breakfast. The last of yesterday's bread, some cheese, coffee for those who want it. The mood is subdued, but not fearful. These women have faced dangers before. Last night's confrontation was frightening, but not unprecedented in their lives on the frontier. You find Emily sitting apart from the others, looking pale and thoughtful. You motion her to a chair at a small table. Quite an introduction to the business, you comment. 2 days in and already involved in a standoff. She offers a small smile. Not what I expected, that's certain. She hesitates. Does this happen often? You consider how to answer. The business attracts all sorts, you say carefully. Most men are just lonely. But some are looking for a place to put their anger. You learn to spot them, and you learn to handle them. She seems to be made of sterner stuff than her delicate appearance suggests. Good, you reply. This work isn't for everyone, but for those who can handle it, there are worse ways to make a living. And it was true, for all its dangers and social stigma. Prostitution on the frontier often provided women with an income and independence unavailable through other means. While a laundress might earn $1.25 per day for backbreaking work, a prostitute in a decent establishment could make $5 or $10 per night. Madams like Maddie Silks and Jenny Rogers accumulated substantial wealth, owning property and businesses at a time when most women were legally and financially dependent on men. Around mid-morning, Sheriff Mills makes an appearance, knocking at the back door rather than the still-locked front entrance. Thomas admits him, while you gather the girls in the main room to hear whatever news he brings. Your troublemakers boarded the eastbound stage at dawn, Mills announces without preamble. Station master confirmed it. They're gone. A collective sigh of relief passes through the room. The immediate threat, at least, has passed. Any chance they'll come back? You ask, not willing to let your guard down completely. The sheriff shrugs. Possible, but not likely. Men like that are usually just passing through. By the time they reach the next town, they'll have found new troubles to occupy them. You nod, accepting his assessment. Thank you for checking, Sheriff, and for your timely arrival last night. Just doing my job, he says, though you both know his job rarely includes protecting the town's brothels. I'd recommend you all get some proper rest today. Won't do business any good if you're all asleep on your feet tonight. After he leaves, the tension in the room finally dissipates completely. The girls, freed from their confinement, chatter excitedly as they head upstairs to their own beds after their uncomfortable night on the saloon floor. You retreat to your own room as well, shedding yesterday's clothes and stretching out on your narrow bed with a sigh of relief. Your body sinks into the familiar mattress, muscles gradually releasing their tension. Sleep claims you quickly, pulling you into a deep and dreamless rest. When you wake in the late afternoon, you feel renewed. The fear and tension of the previous night have receded, replaced by your usual practical focus on the business ahead. You wash thoroughly, enjoying the luxury of water that has been heated on the stove rather than the cold splash that started your day. As you dress for the evening in a gown of deep purple silk, one of your finest, you consider the events of the past few days. The threat from the scarred man and his companions has passed, but it serves as a reminder of the precarious position you occupy in this frontier town. For all your business acumen, for all the money you have saved and invested, you remain vulnerable, a woman alone, running an establishment that exists at the pleasure of men who could shut it down or destroy it at any time. The sheriff who protected you last night could just as easily raid your saloon if public sentiment turned against businesses like yours. This was the reality that all madams faced, even the most successful. They operated within a narrow space between tolerance and condemnation, always aware that their position could change with the next election, the next moral crusade, the next shift in the town's fortunes. Many tried to secure their status through charitable works and community involvement. Maddie Silks was known for buying clothes and school supplies for poor children in Denver. Jenny Rogers contributed to civic improvements. Even Squirrel Tooth Alice, a Texas madam known for her distinctive dental feature, regularly donated to her local church, though she was not herself welcome to attend services. As you finish dressing, you find yourself thinking about the future. How long can you continue in this business? What comes after? Few madams managed graceful retirements. Many succumbed to the hazards of the profession: violence, disease, addiction. Others simply faded from prominence, as age made them less appealing to customers who valued youth and beauty. Maddie Silks was one of the exceptions. After years of running successful brothels in Denver, she eventually married a cattle dealer named Jack Reddy and lived out her days in relative respectability. Jenny Rogers was less fortunate, struggling with health problems in her later years before her death in 1909. Your own savings, carefully accumulated and invested over the years, might be enough for a modest retirement somewhere far from here, where no one knows your history. A small house, perhaps, a garden, books to read, simple pleasures after years of managing the complex, often dangerous business of running a brothel. But not yet. First, there is tonight's business to attend to, tomorrow's supplies to order, next week's accounts to balance, the daily work of survival and success that has defined your life for so long. Downstairs, you find the saloon already coming to life. Thomas has the bar stocked and ready. The piano player is warming up with scales and simple tunes. Your girls, rested after their day off, are in good spirits as they prepare for the evening ahead. Lucy approaches as you survey the room. Everything's ready, she reports. And we've got a new girl arriving tomorrow on the afternoon stage. Bessie over at the Broken Spoke recommended her. You raise an eyebrow at this. One of Bessie's girls. Why would she send anyone our way? Lucy shrugs. Apparently, the girl was asking about better places to work after what happened with that scarred fellow. Bessie told her to try here if she wanted a safer establishment. It is an unexpected compliment from a competitor, especially one like Bessie, who usually cared little for the welfare of her employees. Perhaps the violent death in her brothel has prompted some reflection on her business practices. We'll see what she's like, you say. For now, let's focus on tonight. The evening unfolds with a comfortable predictability. Customers arrive, seeking a temporary escape from the hardships of their lives as miners, merchants, or cowboys. They are a mix of regulars and newcomers, men looking for a drink, a game of cards, or the brief illusion of intimacy that can be purchased for a few dollars. You make your rounds, greeting customers, ensuring drinks are served promptly, and mediating the occasional minor dispute. The familiar rhythm of the night settles around you, comforting in its predictability after the disruptions of recent days. Emily seems to have found her footing. She moves among the customers with growing confidence, laughing at their jokes, accepting drinks, and occasionally leading a man upstairs when terms have been agreed upon. She is a quick learner, adapting to the demands of the profession with a resilience you admire. Later in the evening, you find yourself in conversation with Rose, who is seated with a well-dressed stranger. The man is leaning too close, his hand gripping Rose's arm with visible force. Her smile has a strained quality that signals discomfort. Making your way toward the table, you intervene. This is part of your role as madam, protecting your girls from customers who might become problematic, intervening before situations escalate. Good evening, Rose, you say smoothly. Mary needs your help with something in the kitchen. It is a prearranged phrase, offering an excuse to extract themselves from uncomfortable situations. Rose nods gratefully, pulling her arm from the man's grip. If you'll excuse me, sir, she says with practiced politeness, duty calls. The man frowns, his hand reaching for her again. I paid for your time, and you'll have it, you assure him, stepping between them. As soon as Rose has helped Mary with a small matter. In the meantime, perhaps I can keep you company. It is a delicate balance, maintaining the customer's interest and ensuring he does not feel cheated while still protecting your employee. You signal Thomas with your eyes, a slight tilt of your head that he recognizes immediately. He moves closer to the table, ostensibly to offer more drinks, but actually to provide backup if needed. The man looks you up and down, his expression dismissive. No offense, but I prefer something younger. You smile, unsurprised and unoffended. Of course, Rose will return shortly. In the meantime, please enjoy a drink on the house. You gesture to Thomas, who promptly pours a generous whiskey. The free alcohol pacifies the man temporarily. By the time he finishes it, you have arranged for another girl, Jenny, who is more experienced in handling difficult customers, to take Rose's place. Crisis averted, at least for now. This kind of management was constant in a successful brothel. As the night progresses toward its inevitable conclusion, customers gradually depart. You find yourself back at your small desk, tallying the night's earnings while stifling occasional yawns. Emily approaches as you finish your calculations, handing you her earnings for the night. "It was a good night," she says, a note of pride in her voice. "Better than yesterday." "You're learning fast," you tell her. "Some women take to this business, some don't. You seem to be one who will." "I don't know about that," she says thoughtfully. "But it's better than starving or scrubbing floors until my hands bleed." It is a pragmatic assessment that you appreciate. No romantic illusions about the nature of the work, but no self-pity either. Just a clear-eyed understanding of the limited options available to women in her position. "Get some rest," you tell her. "Tomorrow's another day." As she turns to go, she hesitates. "Thank you," she says quietly, "for taking me in, for keeping us safe last night, for everything." The simple gratitude catches you off guard. In this business, thanks are rare. "You're welcome," you reply, surprised by the warmth you feel toward this young woman who arrived at your door just days ago, desperate and alone. Perhaps you see something of your younger self in her determination to survive. After Emily leaves, you complete your final tasks for the night. Finally, you make your way upstairs to your own room, your body heavy with exhaustion. You remove your finery with slow, careful movements. In your simple cotton nightgown, with your face scrubbed clean, you look your age. The fine lines around your eyes and mouth tell the story of years spent in smoky rooms, managing difficult situations, building a business in a world that never wanted to acknowledge women like you as businesswomen at all. You settle onto your narrow bed, feeling the familiar lumps of the mattress beneath you. Your body gradually relaxes into the thin padding. The sounds of the night drift through your window, a soundtrack to your life. Your thoughts drift to the events of the past few days, and to the women like you who built empires in the dust of the frontier, navigating a world that simultaneously needed and condemned them. Women like Pearl DeVere, Squirrel Tooth Alice, Cad Thompson, and Dora Dufran. They and countless others whose names have been forgotten were as much pioneers as the men who struck gold or drove cattle herds across the plains. Your breathing slows as these thoughts wind through your mind. The weight of the day's responsibilities begins to lift from your shoulders. The mattress seems to grow more comfortable beneath you, cradling your tired body. The simple cotton sheets feel cool, and soothing against your skin. Your eyelids grow heavy, the events of the day fading as sleep approaches. You feel yourself drifting now, your limbs growing heavier, your thoughts becoming less distinct. The sounds from outside seem more distant, as if coming from far away. Your breathing deepens, each exhale carrying away a little more tension from your body. That's it. Let yourself sink deeper into this comfortable place. Feel the weight of your body against the mattress, the gentle release as each muscle relaxes completely. There is nothing more to do tonight. Your mind grows quieter, thoughts slowing like leaves, gently floating down a stream. Images from the day may drift through your consciousness. Emily's grateful smile, the shine of lamplight on glasses behind the bar, the purple silk of your gown catching the light. But they pass without holding your attention. Even deeper now, your breathing finding a natural, peaceful rhythm. In and out, slow and steady. Your heartbeat calms, your body growing warmer and heavier with each breath. The boundary between wakefulness and sleep becomes blurred, indistinct. And as you surrender to this sweet heaviness, this gentle pulling toward rest, you might wonder briefly about tomorrow and all the tomorrows that will follow. Will you continue in this life you have built? Or will you someday make that change you sometimes dream of, the small house somewhere quiet, the garden, the books, the peaceful anonymity of a life without judgment? The question floats away unanswered as sleep claims you fully now. Your breathing is deep and regular, your body completely at rest, safe in this moment of perfect peace. You are drifting deeper and deeper into slumber as the night unfolds you in its quiet embrace. The frontier town sleeps around you, a brief escape from the complications of the lives that have been chosen or have been chosen for them. And you, Madame Catherine, keeper of secrets, manager of desires, businesswoman in a man's world, you sleep too. Your dreams, perhaps, carry you to that quiet place you sometimes imagine, or perhaps return you to the moments from your past, the experiences that shaped you into the woman you have become.